Hello and welcome to the Pop Council Podcast, the show where we cover everything in pop culture. Each week on this show, we discuss topics in the geek world, as well as various fandoms such as Disney, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, theme parks, and everything in between. I'm Jami, Philbrick, entertainment journalist and critic for We Live Entertainment and Movie Phone, and a member of the Hollywood Critics Association. We have a great show for you today. We will be discussing Hawkeye spoilers from the new Disney Plus series Hawkeye, Jurassic World Dominion Prologue, a little teaser trailer that was dropped last week, hooded Green Goblin in the new No Way Home poster. Amy Pascal discusses Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6, Marvel production dates, and much more. But it would not be a Pop Council, of course, if I was not joined by my co-host, Wendy Lee. Szany. Hi, Wendy. How are ya?
I'm doing so good. I finally recovered from food coma over the weekend. I hope all of you guys out there had a good and happy Thanksgiving. If you're here in the U.S. celebrating the holiday, I hope you enjoyed friends and food coma alike.
Yes. Did you? How many days did it take you to get out of the food coma, the turkey coma?
The whole weekend. We didn't even have turkey, but it was like the whole weekend. It was just me and Dustin for this kind of mini Thanksgiving. The in-laws were out of town, out of the States, actuy. So we were like, let's do our own Thanksgiving. And we didn't want to mess with a whole turkey for just two people. Who does that? So we just, the Cornish game hens, the little baby hen, and we just put them in the air fryer. Yeah, it was cute. It was a good time.
Fun. Oh, fun. Good. Yeah, I just went to a friend's house for the meal, and then that was about it. Caught up on a lot of movies this week, and 9 hours of the Beatles documentary on Disney Plus, and so much. But Wendy, we can't do this alone. We need a third. And of course, we called the Outlaw when we need anyone who can talk about Spider-Man and everything in between. Here he is, John Rocha. Hey, John.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving, or happy days after Thanksgiving. How are you all?
How was your Thanksgiving, John?
Well, it's very good. We actually drove up to LA for about 4 hours, hung out with my girlfriend's family up there in Brentwood, and then drove right on back to sleep in our nice, comfortable bed and recover all day on Friday. But good stuff. Great setup, great meals, watched some football, caught up with some of the members of my girlfriend's family, and had some fun playing games with them, the family games, great stuff.
Awesome.
Love that.
Awesome. Well, John, I know you're living in San Diego these days.
I am, yeah.
And of course, there was a Comic-Con this weekend.
That there was, yes.
Believe it or not, San Diego Comic-Con tried to return. They more than tried. They did return this weekend with a smaller event, a live in-person event, but a smaller event than obviously what they're used to. I think the numbers I heard, and John, you can correct me if this doesn't sound right to you, about 150,000 this weekend, when on average it's about 400,000 usually in the summer in a pre-COVID world. So certainly a smaller gathering. And also, what was interesting to me is that it's almost like this is the Comic-Con that it's always was supposed to be. I mean, this is how it began, 30 years ago, just a bunch of comic book, enthusiasts and professionals would get together in, a hotel lobby in San Diego and trade comic books and talk about the new Star Wars movie. We're talking about the 70s and 80s. And then, of course, in the late 90s and early 2000s, morphed into really one of the premier sort of film and television events, in addition to obviously being the big comic book event. So not a lot of that this weekend. Understandably, a lot of television and film stars didn't want to go down to San Diego on Thanksgiving weekend, the first semi post-COVID Thanksgiving. So, but what did you guys think? I mean, for me, kind of being used to it as a professional over the last 15 years, I am used to Comic-Con being, the big star-studded thing. And so to me, it's a little disappointment that it's not. But then the comic book nerd in me thinks like, this is great. This is the way it should be. So I have mixed feelings about it, but everyone that went seems to have had a good time and talking to all the other cosplayers and stuff like that. But John, let me start with you. What were your thoughts on sort of how it all came together this weekend?
Well, it was weird. It was announced. I was like, why over a holiday weekend? No one's going to be in town, and everyone in the or a lot of people on the West Coast are from other areas, and they're going to try to fly home, especially if they haven't seen their family in like 2 years. So this is a good opportunity for them to get together, or they haven't seen friends in a while. Getting together at Thanksgiving is when you do it, a Friendsgiving. So it seemed like an odd decision. That being said, though, the fact that 150,000 people still showed up to try and enjoy these panels, trying to get some information, but nothing was announced. Nothing really big was announced or revealed. None of the new trailers were really dropped there, the kind of big, hoopla that we're used to seeing. So I guess people went back and maybe revisited, as you said earlier, Jami, the spirit of the original intention of Comic-Con, which was for like-minded nerds or geeks or whatever to get together in these rooms and kind of share their love with the creators of some of the stuff that they've really enjoyed. So maybe some of the original spirit returned overall and wasn't quite the massive event that it has been before. That being said, though, just like movie theaters, it had been a little bit on the decline already. So because of the reaction from a lot of fans. So, studios were already wanting to launch their own thing, DC Fandom, Disney with their own thing. So this was already kind of losing its prestige factor. Maybe now returning it back to its roots will kind of turn it into a nostalgia, old school thing that people want to come in droves to again and experience in a whole new way. So it could be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you said, John. Wendy, what do you think about that? The idea that maybe, Comic-Con, that this will become more of the new normal now that obviously DC has done a great job with their fandoms, and Star Wars has Star Wars Celebration that really has been picking up over the last few times that they've done that, D23, all these sort of singular company Comic-Cons. Do you think that the writing's kind of on the walls for Comic-Con for San Diego?
But yeah, I think potentially it could. For a long time, I felt like Comic-Con, as much as I love it, I mean, I sit there and I enjoy all the Hall H stuff, the screaming and the yelling, getting very excited for what they're presenting in Hall H. But at the same time, I felt like for a little while, it was starting to lose its core. What Comic-Con is about is to sell. It's in the name. It's to celebrate comics. But I felt like it was starting to become a very big and very expensive advertisement for all the studios' TV shows and movies. And I get it too. That's a part of, the pop culture. Many of the things that they showed there are rooted with the source material being in comic books. So I get that. But I felt like people were starting to go for, can we see a celebrity? Let's try to get into Hall H, and let's get into other, what's some of the ballroom, whatever it was.
The ballroom
over
20.
At,
yeah.
Yes, that one.
Ballroom.
Yeah, that's right. Waiting in the long lines, as opposed to, I see the artist alley being very, very lonely. The comic book section has been very lonely. And I'm like, man, this is like the core of it. This is how it started, and kind of look at it now. So I do enjoy that they, it was a little bit of a smaller, intimate event, smaller than usual. And, without the hoopla and the big showmanship of the bigger studios with their TV shows and their films going there, because like you both pointed out, they, throughout the last year and a half, 2 years, started to do a lot of their own things because they're capable of it. They're able to do it. DC Fandom really set the precedence for what, they're able to do. An online digital thing. Disney's D23 very much showed that we can run our very own live expo and do it very, very well. It's very well organized. I had a great time there. So I think you're right. I think we may be glimpsing into the future of Comic-Con, what it will look like in 2022 and 2023. What I do like seeing about it, though, was a few of my friends have attended, and they're all cosplayers. And to see that community thrive and be back in person and getting to show off the costumes that they've worked very hard on, and to have panels and get together, I think it was nice. And this was a fully vaccinated event. I did see whose Instagram was it? I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but they were there and they showed like the line of just to show proof of vaccination and or negative COVID test. It was long.
The
line was as long as like a Hall H line. It was insane.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for years, cosplayers have been having to check in. I know a lot of people might not know this, but they have to check in anything deemed as a weapon, right? If you have, Thor's hammer or a staff. So, I would imagine a lot of cosplayers are used to that, are used to the lines and the sort of rigmarole that goes involved into actually getting into the convention center. So I'm hoping that the masks weren't another major, you know, they were sort of used to it. But yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. I mean, I think especially, you know, Comic-Con certainly, I think it's safe to say in the last 10 years has really depended on Hollywood to become larger and to advance itself. And it's done that successfully. As you said, Wendy, a lot of those studios and companies now have, you know, the ability to do it on their own, to do their own sort of highlighting and conventions and be able to bring out the news the way they want it. And I don't think Comic-Con is going to disappear, but I think it is. I think it is in their best interest to sort of practice what their strengths are. And like you said, the cosplayers, I mean, that should be the crowd they're really catering to, as opposed to the crowd that's coming to see Tom Cruise or coming to see, you know, whatever the Marvel event. And going forward, you know, might be able to find, you know, some success in that. But you also have other smaller conventions, comic book conventions that are around the country. Is that what you were about to say, John?
Yes.
That around the country, you know, year round, and they're still paying big bucks so that Chris Evans can speak at a thing, or Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, I mean, that's very lucrative for those actors. I don't know if that'll start to go away or compete with what Comic-Con, if Comic-Con kind of goes in this direction permanently. John, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, you know, I just had a friend who was at the Indianapolis Comic-Con and told me how much she enjoyed it. And I've had friends who run Comic-Cons on the East Coast and Florida. Remember Emerald City or all that? All the,
Seattle.
So Seattle, right. There'd been just this rush to try to compete with San Diego Comic-Con and make their Comic-Cons just as good. New York Comic-Con eclipsed at times, depending on the year, what San Diego Comic-Con did. It was eclipsing with attendance for sure. And that's a madhouse. Like, San Diego's easy because it's one place. New York is like all these different places you have to walk to. So it's a lot more demanding, yet more people came to enjoy it. So now that we've hit it, it feels like the Silicon Valley, like the bubble is burst. And now we'll see how these other Comic-Cons in the smaller cities, or in the cities that are, or not San Diego, New York, how they react to it and what they do. Maybe they are the benefits of it, because these people who are used to go to these cons now get to go to these smaller, more controlled environments, as you said, more lucrative for them. So I guarantee they've got security, they're fetid from the thing, and they're probably less hassled by fans trying to get clips, trying to catch them in certain moments, like paparazzi, mini paparazzis. I'm imagine that's a better situation for the actors and for the people involved. So that may benefit the smaller cons in the long run.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in, because I even think New York Comic-Con this year still tried to, you know, have a television and film presence.
Yes.
So, Wendy, do you see all the cons kind of going in the direction of San Diego?
I don't know if they, aside from a couple of, you know, the bigger established cons, I don't know if they all have the capability as much as like space. And Rocha kind of pointed that out earlier. You know, I think one of the cons that I really enjoyed years ago on the East Coast was Dragon Con. That's in Georgia, and it's lovely, but it's also I think in 3 different hotels, if I can remember, definitely 2, if not 3. So there was a lot of walking around. And whereas I think Comic-Con, and it's also is with New York Comic-Con too, because it's at the Javits Center, it's one place for everybody to go. I think though there for New York Comic-Con, you had to, I think Rocha made the trek to walk, right?
Yeah.
To I don't remember what, I think it was a Spider-Man trailer. That you had to walk to. It was kind of far. It was a bit of a trek. And that's what makes San Diego such like a perfect place for, you know, these you know, A-list celebrities to be there, you know, because you can put them at one of the hotels, and that's all the press suites that are there. That's designated for that, or you just go to Hall H or Ballroom 20, and that is it. Become kind of routine. So, but for the smaller ones, now that, you know, I would think with you guys were talking about earlier, they were pay celebrities for their time to attend the smaller cons. So I was kind of thinking, as you guys were talking about that, if they do like a DC fandom or D23 or Star Wars Celebration, I don't know if they get paid extra for that, because they're promoting what's coming up, right? So that's technically, I don't know how it works. This is me speculating, but maybe it's a part of their, it's a part of their contract of the money that, a lot of the money that they get paid is included in the promotion. So they count that as promotion. But if they go to a smaller con like the Mega Con in Florida, the Dragon Con, the Emerald City Comic Con, even though that's kind of big too, like maybe they get a little extra cash, you know, in their hands for greeting the fans that are outside of the Comic Con bubble.
Well, I can tell you Smallville has been off the air for 10 years, and those actors still, there's no way they're showing up at these cons and not making, I mean, they're making money at these cons. And so
the Power Rangers too.
You may, you may be onto something, you know, with current, you know, if they're currently promoting something, but I mean, I know Chris Evans is still talking about Captain America at, you know, smaller conventions around the country all the time.
Yeah.
So,
That's crazy.
so it is interesting. Well, let's move on. You know, last week saw Hawkeye episodes 1 and 2 premiere. You know, we talked a little bit about it last week. Wendy and I kind of gave our embargoed opinions, yay or nay on the series. Both yays, of course, but we can talk a little bit more in depth about this episode. What happened? We see fan favorite Lucky the pizza dog in this shot, this poster right here. John, you know, since you weren't here last week, let me open it up to you. What were your, you know, feelings on these first 2 episodes, and where you think and maybe hope the series will go in its final 4?
Yeah, I thought this was a fun change of pace. It was nice to kind of remember that there's a ground-based level of heroes that have to function within the world that aren't flying off into space like they seem to be going off to, or dealing with multiverses. This is a very street level story, and I like that, considering what we got with Loki and what we got with WandaVision and what we got with Falcon and Winter Soldier. The Falcon and Winter Soldier, a little more ground-based, but more espionage, more of a global approach. This is a small area of New York City, and all this is happening to Hawkeye. And I think if you're a fan of the Matt Fraction run, this is an interesting new take on it, because in that run, Kate and Hawkeye already know each other. Kate and Clint already know each other. In this version, they're getting to know each other for the first time, navigating that. You got the Tracksuit Mafia. You got Echo popping up at the end there. You got Vera Farmiga. What's her play in all of this? You know, she's been a bit of a villain in the comics. So how are they going to play that out? Plus, introducing Swordsman. I thought that was great. I didn't even know that he was going to show up. So are they going to follow the comics with him and have Duquesne be like this former mentor of Clint Barton? Are they going to play that out? So there's a lot of questions, if you're a comic book fan, to be excited about, to see how they're going to answer them through the series. And there's rumors about D'Onofrio coming back as Kingpin. So there's a lot of that. I like Kate Bishop's portrayal. Really loved how she Haley Steinfeld's portrayal of Kate Bishop. Really love how she slid into the role. It's a 2021 interpretation, but still honoring the sarcastic, smart mouth, intelligent, brash, egotistical Kate Bishop, who is awesome, which is why people love her. And then having Jeremy Renner get more time to give you his Clint Barton was great. So to me, I was enjoying the acting from top to bottom. And then, kind of curious to see where we're going to go next, and getting more. I hope we get more bro of the Tracksuit Mafia, because that was a great introduction, and I wanted more minutes for the Tracksuit Mafia before you push them to the side. So yeah,
I agree with you completely. I mean, Wendy knows this. I'm a huge Hawkeye fan. I love all the bow and arrow superheroes for some reason. I don't know why in all the different universes. So I listen. I'm a huge Sharon Renner fan too. I think he's an amazing actor.
Agreed.
And we all know really didn't get the opportunity to let this character kind of, make it his own and really let this character take off until, I mean, arguably it began with Age of Ultron, but didn't really, happen until Civil War, and in some ways is still happening. Right. So I did also think that, but this is more of a critique on the Disney Plus shows than on Hawkeye individually, is that all of these shows start off a little slow the first 2 to 3 episodes. When WandaVision, I felt like the second episode slowed down and then picked back up with the third. Certainly that was the case with Winter Soldier. The only exception really is Loki. Loki started, in full speed and then slowed down on episode 3 and then kicked back up. So as far as like just looking at episode 1 and 2, there's a lot of setup. It's a little slow in some things. You'd like a little bit more action. I feel like that big end credit, or not end credit, but sort of extended trailer scene that we saw released on the Disney Plus day where they steal the car. I feel like that's going to be the first 5 minutes of the next episode.
I agree.
I could be wrong. We'll find out tomorrow night, but like, I feel like that's going to be beginning. And now we're really off and running in the last 4 episodes to kind of get where we need to get to with the show. But Wendy, what were your thoughts on the first 2 episodes and where the series is hopefully going?
I really enjoyed it. I said from the beginning, like, you know, as much as I enjoy Hawkeye being, you know, having one of the original Avengers being, you know, having his own, another one of the original Avengers having their own Disney Plus show, this is also very much Kate Bishop's show. Like, Haley Steinfeld is so fun to watch. I really enjoy her take on Kate Bishop. I enjoy the kind, I don't want to call it like a buddy cop because it's not really that sort of a relationship between her and Hawkeye, but maybe sort of a master and a unwilling master and an apprentice, a very eager apprentice, having the two of them back and forth. I think their chemistry is fantastic. And we're adding all these other elements that are in there that we're thinking, well, hold on a second, you know, you don't cast Vera Farmiga in anything without giving her some sort of a juicy world to bite into. So I think there's definitely more to be seen there, as well as Jack. We love Tony Dalton, but Jack is like the character that you love to hate and you hate to love, because there's something weird about him. I'm sure at the end, right now, I'm kind of marking him as the villain, but I think maybe it's just him being ambitious with the money, and that's all really it. And he will be a victim to whatever there is to come. And of course, seeing at the very end, the introduction of Echo, I loved how the whole scene just turned red and they showed the bass, her hand kind of feeling the beat of the music because we know she's deaf, and showing her. And of course, the Tracksuit Mafia is like, bro, I found her. I laughed so much. I was like, this is literally the broiest of gangs, and I kind of want more of them. Maybe next Halloween I'll dress up as like Tracksuit Mafia guys.
I bet that's going to be
comfy,
a very popular costume.
This year, Squid Game. Next year, Tracksuit Mafia.
Right. Yeah.
One tracksuit to another.
But let me ask you guys. Yeah, go.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, John, please go ahead.
What? This is an interesting setup for that, and I hear your point, Jamie. But I felt like they had to lay the groundwork here because, like with the Matt Fraction run, we already know the relationship with Kate and Clint by the time we start reading that thing from page 1. This one they have to lay because they're introducing Haley Steinfeld, right? They're introducing. I liked that they introduced it and connected to the Avengers in New York from 2001. Not that that's the second show that's kind of connected to the Avengers in it, with Loki being there as well. So just I love that they've kind of and it makes sense, and you're exploring that, and then you get into who she is, and this idea of, and listen, this is 2021, so. This idea of a rich white girl taking care of a bell and knocking it out and going, Mom, pay for it, or Mom, oh, well, Mom, you know, like, are they going to explore the privileged nature of Kate Bishop? Will that come up here? So I'm curious. They've laid some interesting groundwork. So it excites me to see, like, because even that moment where he's like, I can't store you, I can't stash you anywhere. She was, I'm not a bag of money. You don't stash me. So we're seeing already the dissension here, the back and forth. How much of that is going to play out? Are we getting a pseudo father-daughter relationship here? Or are we getting something more, mentor-mentee relationship? I don't know. And so it interests me. It makes me very, very curious. And the idea that he also has the hearing issues, Echo having the hearing issues, all of that is going to be fun to explore. There's only 4 episodes left. I don't know how people think they're going to weave in Kingpin or weave in all this stuff.
Oh, I think they're going to weave it in.
I
think they're weaving it in.
This is enough already, though. My God.
But I don't think it's going to be like a full episode.
Kingpin.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
Vincent D'Onofrio literally quote tweeted the Marvel that show.
He's trolling you.
No.
I mean, Cavill has taken 10 pictures.
Vincent D'Onofrio is trolling us.
No.
No. I mean, listen.
He's never tweeted out any other Disney Plus shows, and he even was very careful with his wording. He was like, "I love these Marvel shows," but he chose to quote tweet. Like, he could have come out earlier. I love Hawkeye. Not Hawkeye. I love Falcon and the Winter Soldier. No,
Loki,
because of the connection between or Loki, the connection between Echo and Kingpin. And I'm not saying he's going to be in like a full episode. I think he's definitely a post-credit sort of a thing. But
I wonder
we'll
because
see him.
He was doing a lot of press for the Sandra Bullock movie that's on Netflix, Unforgivable, I think's the name of it. And almost every journalist to a person asked him about that, and he could be giving the safe answer, but his answer was to everyone was, I want to do it, they have to ask me.
Yeah.
Claiming that he hasn't been asked yet. And I feel like if you have been asked and you filmed something, then you're going to say something else to sort of throw off the scent. Not they haven't asked me yet, but that's what I'm basing it on. But I could be 100% wrong, and we could totally say. So, well, now, John, you brought up 2 points that I wanted to bring up, and Wendy, if you want to chime in on these, the connection to the first Avengers movie and to really sort of retconning shots that we've known for 10 years. And then, of course, Echo and the kind of connection between her and Hawkeye that they've weaved into the show that I don't believe was in the Fraction material, with Hawkeye having a hearing impediment as well. So, Wendy, what were your just reactions to sort of those two moments, and where do you think? Obviously, we know we're going. I was going to say, where are we going with Echo? Obviously, we know she's going to get her own show by next year.
I'm still on that.
We'll talk about that a little bit, but in the course of Hawkeye, where do you think Echo will go within the course of Hawkeye, the series?
Where Echo will go, obviously they had to introduce her quickly because we're already 2 episodes in. We got 4 left, and yes, they're about an hour each. But I think this is kind of how Ahsoka, in a more detailed way, how Ahsoka appeared in The Mandalorian to tee up for her own show. I think this is very much Echo being teed up for her show, but you want to drop her within this universe, and it works with the Tracksuit Gang, and it works with the crime syndicate, and later on Kingpin. I don't want to talk about it too much more because I think I get too excited about that. But I know we literally saw her for the last 10 seconds of episode 2, but that got me really hyped for this week's episode because, like you said, Jami, I think we're gonna really get to see the extended footage that is on Disney Plus of the car chase scene. That is like really, really incredible. I like that they are playing more into the having more deaf characters and handicapped characters in Marvel Disney shows. We saw it with Eternals. We're seeing it now with Hawkeye, both hearing impaired, all 3 hearing impaired characters. So I like to see that included more, and them casting, deaf actors and deaf actresses. And what was the first question you said? Something about the
prologue, the Avengers connection.
Oh yeah, see, that's cool too, because Dustin and I kind of joked about that a little bit when we were watching the show, when we saw the first Chitauri kind of fly by, and we were just in Kate's room, so we're not seeing anyone else's reaction in New York, but there wasn't siren happening. You don't hear that outside until the big explosion happened. And my kind of excuse was, if you want to make it super meta, New York's seen some shit. With Ghostbusters in the 80s, they've seen the giant marshmallow Stay Puft Man, they've seen like Jurassic Park dinosaurs, T-Rexes in this city, so they've seen it. So I feel like when they see some like 1 or 2 things flying in the air that are miniature, they're like, well, it'll be fine. Until later on. But I kind of do like to see how other characters were affected by the attack in New York, and someone else seeing an Avenger in action. What's that point of view like? Because we got a very cinematic look at it, and it still was cinematic. Seeing Hawkeye leap backward off the building and then crashing through the glass. You can kind of still see that. So I like that they're giving us a little bit of Kate's POV on what happened there. And I also need, just before I hand the baton off to somebody else, I need in each episode a new song dropped from Rogers the Musical.
Oh yeah,
it's on the songs on Spotify. I've been listening to it.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
and they got Adam Pascal to do it.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Roger.
They've done sort of retconning moments before in the MCU movies. Sort of, I'm thinking of Spider-Man: Homecoming as one of them. Sort of retconning new characters into old MCU moments, and I think it's worked well in some instances, not well in others. I think it worked well with Hawkeye. So that's what I'll say about that. We have a lot more of Marvel talk to do, but let's move over to a completely different IP for a second and just talk about the Jurassic World Dominion prologue trailer, teaser trailer. Really, it's not even really a trailer. It seems like it could be the opening moments of the movie, because the Universal logo opens it up, and then we get to see dinosaurs 65 million years ago in their natural habitat, something we've never seen before in a Jurassic World movie. And then it quickly cuts to Chris Pratt in a helicopter chasing a dinosaur through a drive-in theater. At first, I was kind of like, until I saw Chris Pratt, I wasn't sure if this happened in our present timeline of the Jurassic World series or if this was some sort of flashback, because I believe American Graffiti and Flash Gordon are the movies showing at the theater. And everyone seems to have retro clothes on. But at the same time, there is something that says classic movie night or something on the marquee. And then, of course, you see Chris Pratt, and you know, oh, no, we're in the current Jurassic timeline. But I thought it was a really neat teaser trailer to get kind of, because I don't think we had really any idea what the plot of this movie was. We knew that, you know, the stars of Jurassic World were coming back, the stars of the original trilogy. Jeff Goldblum had already made a cameo in the last one, but that Sam Neill and Laura Dern were coming back. And we know that they're like cloned human beings running around because of the ludicrous ending of the last movie. Other than that,
oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they clone humans now too in Jurassic World. So one can only hope there'll be more than one Jeff Goldblum in this movie. But you know, we can only cross our fingers for that. So I thought it gave a good hint at, you know, kind of the direction they're going in it, and obviously the terror that would be created if a dinosaur, if a T-Rex ruins your classic movie double feature night. But Wendy, what were your thoughts on this trailer and sort of all the good action that it gave us?
I didn't expect it to be like 5 minutes long, but I enjoyed it. I also felt like some way, like I think maybe about like a minute and a half in, I was like, I feel like I need a David Attenborough voiceover. It's kind of calming, you know, like the dinosaurs, seeing them in their natural habitats, seeing them fight. Love seeing the feathers on some of the dinosaurs. I was like, yes, finally, it's not just like rubbery kind of like skin. Really enjoyed that. And then the fast forwarding to, you know, 65 million years later. Oh, and I like the little nods to a lot of the iconic imagery from the original film, like the mosquito sucking the blood out of the dinosaur, and of course the T-Rex doing the anytime the T-Rex roars, I feel like there should be a banner that says dinosaurs rule the world. That's how it should always end. But it gets me excited for, you know, to see these large animals running amok on screen and see what kind of chaos is going to happen. I am curious to see if they are going to revisit the cloning of the humans. For that, obviously didn't touch on that in this 5-minute trailer or video, but I kind of forgot about that. And I kind of want them to go back to, and I know the whole, you know, crossbreeding dinosaurs, and now we have like the Indominus Rex and all that stuff, but I kind of want them to go back to the original, just give us like the classic dinosaurs. That's kind of what I liked about the original.
I agree 100%. I did not care for the cloning humans twist at the end of the last movie. Weird. And I don't really care for this, like, let's put the DNA of this one with that one and make this, you know, incredible monster. Like, I agree with you. Go back to the original, go back to kind of creating the dinosaurs. But the feathered dinosaur you mentioned is interesting. I was reading an article that's actually a real species that was only discovered like 2 years ago. And they and you know, they discovered it in time to then put it in this movie. So that's kind of interesting. And I think I heard that there's like 7 new species of dinosaurs that have never been in a Jurassic Park or World movie that they're putting in this film. So yeah, it got me excited for a franchise that I otherwise gave up on years ago. John, what is your thoughts on Jurassic World?
I mean, look, the dinosaurs were never the problem with the movies. That's the thing at the end of the day, right?
Such a good point. Such a good point.
Right. I mean, I got to give credit to my brother, Michael Vogel on the Geek Buddies. He said the same thing. And it was like, yeah, exactly. The dinosaurs were never the trouble with these movies. It's about the story and these characters and the people they bring in, or the believability. I mean, in the first movie of the recent trilogy that's happening here, you had Bryce Dallas Howard's character, and she was as negligent with those kids as you could be. And it was like, well, who am I supposed to be cheering for here? In this, you handed them off to your assistant, and your assistant gets eaten. You're the one that should have gotten eaten. So it's like those things that you just see here. You're like, why am I cheering for these people again? And then you turn BD Wong into an evil guy. By the way, real quick, finish the first 2 seasons of Nora from Queens. If you guys haven't watched Nora from Queens, you will just rediscover the greatness of BD Wong if you watch that. Great stuff there from Awkwafina. But anyway, doing that seemed odd to me on so many levels. And then you add in this new dinosaur that's all weird, but then you go crazy in the second one, and they're fighting on top of roofs, and you're cloning humans, and now you set them off out there amongst the humans. So to me, it's like, just write a damn good story and let's go from there. You know, Amy Pascal, I know we're going to get to that, but she said that about the Spider-Man and Miles Morales possibilities. It starts with the story first, then we'll figure out everything else. And I just feel like with this Jurassic, this recent comeback of these Jurassic movies, the story hasn't been that good. It's been kind of boring. I haven't cared about the characters, but I've enjoyed the dinosaurs, and they've made some interesting choices with these characters and their motivations that haven't really worked for me. So maybe you can redeem it here in this third one. Maybe there's more bringing back the original actors, as Wendy mentioned, and you mentioned here, Jami. Maybe that's the way back into this thing, and bringing it back to a ground-based level, kind of a street-level approach, an original movie approach to this. Maybe there's a way out from here to at least end this trilogy on an up note that a lot of people will enjoy, because I know a lot of people did not like that last movie.
No, and you mentioned retconning BD Wong, and I swear if Samuel L. Jackson hadn't died in the first one, he'd be back as the villain by now too.
Totally.
But the other interesting like peripheral character from the first movie is the character that was the shady guy that was buying the samples from
the very first film,
from Newman from Seinfeld,
right? Inside the
yeah. So that actor has been recast because he's in prison in real life right now, so they couldn't use him.
Well, I
don't want to get into what he. I don't want to get into that.
I will research.
Google it. It's not something we want to mention. It's a horrible, heinous crime. Let's put it that way.
Okay, that's bad. Okay.
One of those heinous crimes, right? And so Campbell Scott has been cast as his role. So that's a character that I had to explain to you who he was in the first movie. We don't even remember him. And then that character is going to be a big part of this next one. So they are definitely retconning a lot of things and trying to make things bigger than they were, which is interesting. So we shall see on that one. Well, as John alluded to, there is a lot of Spider-Man news this morning. First, let's deal with something that happened late. Actually, I think on Thanksgiving this got dropped. They're going crazy. I mean, we're less than a month away from the opening of the film. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other issue. Wendy. I think. Yeah, good luck. I think Fandango's gone down, crashed because of that.
Has it?
But yeah, I was reading that story today too. But a bunch of this, so Sony's just going nuts, putting out all this promotion. So we've already seen, we saw last week, we talked about in the show, the second new poster with the little Green Goblin behind there. Another one was released, and if you zoom in on that Green Goblin, you can see Willem Dafoe's face, confirming that, in fact, Willem Dafoe is going to be in this movie. It's a hooded Green Goblin. So when I first saw it, I actually was like, oh, no, they're not bringing back James Franco, are they? Because I thought that was the James Franco hooded Hobgoblin, I guess, or Green Goblin 2 from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. I knew that wasn't possible because Disney ain't working with James Franco right now. That ain't happening for other heinous reasons that we can talk about later. And so it's interesting. I mean, I love that we have a confirmation this is Willem Dafoe. And honestly, the one thing I always had a problem with in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man is I didn't like the metal mask. I didn't like that his skin wasn't actually green, that the actor couldn't like move his facial expressions with the mask. That was just this frozen mask. So I like the idea of the hood, but I don't know if it's some sort of, Willem Dafoe playing the Green Goblin too. Is it some, strange amalgamation of all those different things? John, what are your thoughts, and what did you think when you saw this?
Remember, Dane DeHaan played Green Goblin in The Amazing Spider-Man, and no one's mentioned whether he's, everyone seems to be convinced that he's not a part of this, but we don't know. Maybe that's the one secret they can keep. They haven't leaked yet. That's certainly a possibility. And here's a horrible possibility. This is another Green Goblin from another dimension or another universe, right? And they've de-aged Willem Dafoe. That's a possibility that I was kind of considering over the weekend.
Oh.
As I did
I like that.
as I did what you did, Jamie. I kind of, used my hands and went like,
Yeah.
I'm like, who is that? What is it? Who could that be? And a lot of people speculating. So to me, those are the two options that kind of jump to mind. I agree with you. There's no way they would risk the kind of backlash of putting Franco in at this point. And so I think those are the only two avenues. Dane DeHaan works because he's in the Amazing Spider-Man. You're bringing Electro, you're bringing in Andrew Garfield, possibly Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, who knows? And so these possibilities are roaming around. So or as maybe they bring Gwen Stacy back as Spider-Gwen. So that's a possibility. So maybe they introduce that.
I would love.
There's a lot of avenues here to explore. So it wouldn't be out of the realm possibility to have Dane DeHaan come in, nor would it be the other possibility for them de-age Willem Dafoe, which the de-aging technology has gotten so good now lately.
Right.
I think it's don't look at Irishman, look at other things. It's gotten so much better now that it
Look
could
at being the Ricardos.
Yes, being the Ricardos.
And it's amazing. It's
Yes.
seamless.
Yes.
It's seamless in that.
Agreed. So
Yeah.
it is that good that it could be possible that this is another Green Goblin from another universe. Yeah.
Or are you also saying that like it's possible that it could be the Willem Dafoe Green Goblin, but not from Spider-Man,
Right.
But maybe he's a different Goblin, but he's Willem Dafoe, but he's younger, but he's in the Goblin costume that we saw Dane DeHaan in.
Right, exactly. That's a possibility.
Yeah, that they
too.
could be kind of playing fast and loose with a lot of those ideas.
Right.
Interesting. I mean, we know Jamie Foxx's Electro obviously looks 100 times different, and even the Lizard has had an upgrade. Wendy, what were your thoughts when you saw this hooded Green Goblin? Were you as confused as I was?
Well, no, not really, because in the trailer before, like the latest one that came out, not a TV spot, but like an actual trailer, they showed a very quick glimpse of a Green Goblin going by, and it looked different from like the other Green Goblin that we had seen, and Dustin and I were speculating like, oh, maybe it's what's his face? We thought maybe it would be Harry, like the son, but so now I think it's just been, because a lot of people in the comments are like, oh, it's actually this, and so it's been confirmed. So I feel like now that we know, so I think I was half expecting this. I'm just surprised that they released a photo of it so like I don't know, so soon. I just thought, because they've been holding a lot of surprises back, and they already gave us Doc Ock and Electro and a lot of the other characters, so like why did they reveal? I don't know. It just maybe they're trying to reveal this and divert attention away from, so we're not thinking like, is Andrew going to be in this? Is Toby going to be in this? When in reality, everybody is still thinking about it. That is 100% the number one, thought in everybody's head. Like, are so-and-so people going to be in this?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, the fact that they're releasing so many quote unquote secrets right now, a month out, makes me think there's some really big secrets they're keeping. And I've been the number one purveyor of Andrew and Toby aren't in this movie, but there's something big that it may not be that, but there is they would not reveal, because in any other world, Willem Dafoe back as Green Goblin is like the biggest news of the year. Yeah. So I think they've got something up their sleeve that they're protecting. I think they have the ace up their sleeve. So, and the other thing that you made me think of, Wendy, is I know that there was a shot in the trailer where he's in like the Sam Raimi Green Goblin mask and costume.
Yes,
I wonder if that is completely fake just for the trailer. If that doesn't exist at all, if he doesn't look like that Green Goblin at all in this movie, they just did that. So that we thought because they are keeping his true look for a reveal. Yeah, I don't know. That's
possible, isn't it? That makes so much sense that could be a possibility to play with all that, because I mean we saw the Avengers running in Infinity War and then never showed up. Hulk, none of that showed up, right? With Hulk, exactly. And we of course saw that Brazil 1 minute trailer clip that was leaked. That showed somebody punching Lizard and Electro. Yeah, somebody. We don't see anybody there, so it could be possible they digitally mess around with stuff or present something that's not even in the movie at all. So,
I think that's Where's Waldo. I think people are looking for something that's not there. As far as the Lizard punch, like Get a life. Let's move on. This is not. There's no.
His head
you know,
is literally
come on.
snapping backwards, Jamie. What do you mean?
I don't know. Until I see the movie, I'm just like, I just think that's looking way too much for
It was
for
John
something
Cena.
that's
Come on,
not
you know.
there.
You couldn't
It could have been John Cena. In other Spider-Man
Oh
news,
my
this actually
God.
just dropped this morning. So, and John, you alluded to it. Amy Pascal revealed today, confirmed that Sony will work with Marvel in the future, Disney Marvel, moving forward after Spider-Man No Way Home, with 3 more Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6 movies starring Tom Holland as Spider-Man. So I'm sure we're all glad to hear this, that Tom's gonna stay playing Spider-Man for a little bit. This news was interesting to me because I think it's sort of hinting at, like, they figured out that the Marvel formula works and they don't want to mess with that formula, but they're creating their own formula with Venom, Morbius, and then of course we're going to have a Kraven movie. So my feeling is that this is probably news saying, you know, Tom's going to continue to be Spider-Man, but he'll be Spider-Man over there and he'll be Spider-Man over here. And maybe our stories over here will connect to those stories over there. Maybe they won't, but he's going to continue to be Spider-Man, sort of bridging that gap between the two Marvel multiverses. Wendy, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think on this announcement, and do you think that's sort of the direction they're going in?
I kind of gave myself a sigh of relief when I saw the news, because I really thought for some reason that they were going to somehow take Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, out of the MCU, and then we'll never have him again for another, big adventure, ensemble movie. And I was like, no, I hate that. It's Spider-Man. He's so good as Spider-Man, as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. That's what I like about Tom's portrayal in these films. And so I think it's good news to hear that they are moving forward to continue to work with Marvel for the next 2 films. And maybe this is also a way to help them. You know, Marvel has built such a big, obviously the MCU, as we know, it's very intricate now. There's a lot of like, this connects to that. And Sony is just starting to, dip their toe in the water of that with the Venom verse, and with Morbius coming, and more into the Spider-Verse for the second film. So I like to see them bring in, their own Spider-Verse via all of these films, connect them all together somehow. Morbius is already starting to do that just a little bit. We see a photo of the graffiti of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in one of the trailers. He talks about, he jokes, I am Venom. Just kidding. I'm Dr. Morbius, at your service. So he's acknowledging some of these things. So I would like to see all of that connect later on. Like, imagine finally having Venom and Spider-Man in the same film, which is inevitable. So I think by them continuing to work with Marvel, maybe Marvel can and granted, Marvel is only working with them on the Spider-Man films, but that's not to say they can't, like, say, can you consult us or whatever it may be on these other films to bring all that together. By the way, I got tickets.
Oh, go! You did
nice.
Just now while we were doing the show.
While you guys were talking, I was like, let me do it.
Multitasker.
Got them tickets. Not Dolby, but it's fine. It's fine.
Don't get me started on what universe Morbius takes place in, because I don't have a clue. I mean, it takes place in like 5 universes from what I can tell. So who knows? But I definitely agree with you, Wendy. I think that and I think that Sony has seen the value of the Marvel brand, which had been somewhat, split apart for a long time. I think fans knew there was a difference between, Daredevil and some of the X-Men movies and what they were getting with the MCU. And so now that all of that's gone and we're sort of just dealing with the MCU and the Sony sort of connected Marvel universe, I think they're seeing that fans are really appreciating that and responding to that with movies like Venom and Venom 2, and that they can maybe create their own version of the Marvel universe, but you really exploit that IP brand that has really become like the #1 brand in movie marketing. John, what were your thoughts on the announcement?
Yeah, I mean, I woke up and saw the announcement, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a random live video on my channel for an hour and breaking this whole thing down. And I went line by line through her interview, because Amy Pascal is revealing so much, yet saying
Uh-huh.
so little. And I think
Right.
that's what's so great. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the Miles Morales stuff, and she essentially is inferring that a live action Miles Morales is in the works. If you read between the lines, this idea of creating the story first, there's a lot of avenues for us to explore. She lays out that there's 3 different universes in her mind: the Marvel universe, what they're building with Morbius and Venom over here, and into the Spider-Verse universe. And she said each one of these will be additive. So additive does not mean they're going to all mix and it's going to be a big old movie. It's we're going to be elements, possibly. You might see elements of it, as we saw at the end of Venom, a possible post-credit scene that could connect up to the MCU. So this additive, it's not the overwhelming driving force, this combination of all these universes coming together. So that's an interesting approach that they're taking here. The idea that she announced 3 more Tom Holland Spider-Man films is great and joyous. And you wonder, well, you pair that up with what Tom Holland said in that GQ interview. And he said, if I'm playing Spider-Man after I'm 30, I'm doing something wrong. And so it's like, okay, well, how do you counter that? Well, you turn him into a mentor. And that may be what's happening here as we go into the other trilogy, is that we will see him have his own run as Spider-Man, but eventually Miles Morales will be introduced live action in that trilogy. And while Spider-Man, and Wendy, as from our Collider days, I've said this since Collider Heroes and since Movie Talk, I think Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, will lead the new Avengers. And I think not the young Avengers, the new Avengers. And he will be the leader for them, essentially taking Tony's spot, just like they've set it up in the first trilogy. And while he's doing that, he can't really be hanging out your friendly neighborhood. Someone's got to fill that void. And I think Miles Morales is going to be that Spider-Man that is on the street level until they eventually graduate him up to handling all that stuff that's going out in space. So I think that's going to be the subject of that new trilogy. And they already introduced Donald Glover as his uncle. They already mentioned Miles in Homecoming. So this possibility here is opening up for him to kind of transition with his Spider-Man and keep doing his Spider-Man, and giving him avenues to become older with Spider-Man while also bringing in a younger Spider-Man. And post Black Lives Matter, as we've seen more diversity in our casting, more diversity in our mainstream media, finally, not that we haven't always been here, but finally seeing it happening. Now you've got a Miles Morales that could be leading the new Spider-Man, and people would be 1,000% on board with it. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, they might not have been. Now they are, because of Into the Spider-Verse and other things. So there's so much that she said here that I think are positive and interesting. And mentioning Sony and Marvel and what that example could serve down the road for other studios if they want to work together on a project, and what it could yield. Because why would you work together on one franchise and then mess up the opening installment? You're out of the franchise when you can work with another studio that has a great track record and you can make more money down the road overall. So much here to enjoy from Amy Pascal for sure.
Yeah.
I would love it if all that comes true. I would love to see Miles Morales. And you're right. It's already, somewhat been established in the MCU. Certainly the seeds have been planted. So, real quick, before we run out of time, we've got just a couple of things we wanted to talk about as far as Marvel production announcements. We got an announcement last week that Blade will start production in late summer of 2022, with Werewolf by Night beginning in February, March of 22. And then we were just talking about it. Of course, the Echo series on Disney Plus, spinning off of Hawkeye, beginning production late April of 2022. So a lot of announcements. My guess from that is that Blade is shooting for an October 2023 release, because I don't think they'd get a Halloween 2022 if they're just starting in late summer. They very well, Blade could end up being summer 2023, not necessarily Halloween, but I'm just assuming that October would be a good time to launch a vampire superhero movie. And then that makes me think that Werewolf by Night starting in this winter, early spring, means they'll have that ready, because I think it's just like a special episode, like maybe a 2-hour or 90-minute kind of Halloween special. And so that would be ready for Halloween of 2022. And then I'm assuming Echo would start possibly as early as maybe, the Christmas season of 2022. a year after Hawkeye launched.
Mm.
Just based on those production dates, that's kind of what I'm guessing. But obviously, we know things could change and move along. But John, what were your thoughts on sort of these announcements? And so, for me, whenever a production is announced, like we have a start date, it's like, oh, okay, this is really happening. I don't believe that it's really happening until it's happening. So at any rate, are you happy to see that these 3 shows are happening?
You know who doesn't believe this is happening? 15-year-old John Rocha, 15-year-old The Outlaw. Can't believe that this is happening. Let me tell you something right now. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And I was talking about this earlier on my show. Like the fact that 2008 is only 13 years ago, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
And now in 2021, we're opening the door to multiverses in Marvel and DC around the same time. And now we're going to get freaky with Werewolf by Night and Blade and Morbius. And who knows where this could go. As much as you're going out into space, now we're going into these weird kind of magic, occult kind of stuff. So it's so interesting. It feels like all the stuff that I saw on the comic book shelves is coming off the comic book shelves. It's coming to life in a way that none of us could have possibly thought was going to happen in 2008 when we were walking out of that Iron Man movie. So for me, this is all exciting. I love the Blade. Love that that's coming back. I'm a little misty eyed that we don't get Wesley to come back as Blade possibly, but Delroy Lindo being involved with Mahershala Ali, that's badass combo for sure. And where we're going to go with Werewolf by Night, God only knows. And I hope it actually happens. I don't hope they don't stop that one from happening. So I'm excited for that. And Echo, of course, some more. So many avenues are being explored here on the ground level and in the occult kind of stuff and out into space. So it's so incredible to see how big this universe is getting. Did somebody say fatigue? I don't see it happening. So it's
remember that
out.
Superhero fatigue.
Superhero fatigue. Bullshit. Where everybody wants more.
Well, it's funny, John, because I remember actually in 2008, I was interviewing Steve Gerber, who's he created Howard the Duck, and he's since passed on, but was a great. I also did Thundar the Barbarian. And
I love Thundar.
Yeah. So great creator. And that summer was the summer of Iron Man, but it was also the Dark Knight. And I think Hellboy 2, and I think Wanted, and I think there was maybe a Fantastic Four with the Silver Surfer was that summer. Like there were a lot of different superhero movies. And I remember asking Steve like the question that was bouncing around at the time, which was like, when will the bubble burst? When will the comic book bubble burst? Now this is 2008. This is pre the MCU really be created. And he was like, I don't think it's going to burst because I would have thought it would have burst by now. Like, look at this summer and all the different comic book based movies we have. If he had only lived to see what the MCU and Kevin Feige would go on to create, it would have blown his mind. So that's, a long time, that we're talking about a guy who wrote for Marvel in the 70s and DC in the 80s. This is a long time comic book creator. And he couldn't believe what was happening in movies with superheroes 2008. So to see where we've come now and what Feige's been able to create is just incredible. And I'm still holding my breath that Wesley Snipes will play Whistler in the new Blade, but we'll see. What were your thoughts, Wendy, on these production announcements?
It just makes me very excited and to see the MCU expanding more. And I just think like just from a production behind the scenes, how chaotic that is, like all the meetings that they have to sit in to carefully weave in, these characters and how they connect. And you have to always refer back to the comic book. And, you want to try to bring something new to the comic book, but you want to make sure the fans of the comic books are still happy with the current portrayal, as well as make it easy for the general audience who's maybe even till today have not picked up a comic book, just because one, it's not available, or they're not interested because they just like the movies, because some people are like that, and that's totally okay. You take it however you like it. So I just appreciate the thought that Marvel has put in to build their MCU and giving us all these characters. Like, I cannot believe, I remember at Comic-Con 2018 at Hall H, at the very end of the Marvel presentation, it was like, P.S. Mahershala Ali is going to be Blade. I was like, well, no, hold on. This is not P.S.
Right.
Well, you bring that back and he's on stage. And I'm like, well, what? Okay. And then it was like, get out. Everybody get out, leave. It's time. So I'm very excited. I never thought that we would even see Echo in the MCU. The fact that I didn't even really know about her until, I heard whispers of like Echo's going to be in, and like maybe Kingpin's going to come back, and how that's going to connect to like, Charlie Cox this Daredevil might be coming back, and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening?
Oh, yeah.
So it just makes me very excited, and to hear about these production dates, you can kind of take a look at what they're working, what's been announced, which means that is in pre-production and or about to start production. And Rocha, you mentioned earlier about like space. It just makes me keep thinking, I haven't let it go yet. Like, at the end of phase 4, are we getting a Fantastic Four at the end of that? And then I know. I'm curious to who they're going to cast, because my vote was for Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, but they said that several times they don't want to do it. I get it. You're actors. That's like you're maybe you're not interested, and that's okay. And there's plenty of actors out there. And what Disney and Marvel have done a really good job with is finding actors that we haven't seen before in a big budget film, and they and I've appreciated being introduced to these actors. So I think they will probably maybe go that route for the Fantastic Four. So then it kind of lessens the fan expectation of like, I want this actor and I envision it in my head canon this way, and they're going to look like this. It kind of breaks that and say, this is the team right here, and they're all new, and you're going to get to learn about them and how they're going to fit into the MCU. So that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff coming up, obviously for Marvel and the MCU in the next few months and year. And we can't, I can't believe that we're just a couple of weeks away from Spider-Man No Way Home. Like that, I can't even wrap my mind around it. So I need to not think about it so that I don't get too excited. But unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Great show. We want to thank you guys, our audience, for tuning in and remind you to follow us. We're just one of the shows the Hollywood Critics Association has been launching this year. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tune into Pop Council every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We also want to let you know about the Long Box. That's on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Horrifically Horrifying on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Hollywood Approved, that is at 3 p.m. Pacific time. The day changes, so as they say, check your local listings. What to stream on Thursdays at 11 a.m. What's trending in Hollywood Fridays at 11 a.m. And finally, I'm pleased to let you know about HCA's Hawkeye After Show, hosted by myself along with Kira Lynn and Mark Passas. That is every Wednesday at 1:01 a.m. Pacific time, 4:01 a.m. Eastern time. You gotta love those embargoes. John, thanks for doing the show, man. We really appreciate it. Let everyone know where they can check out your work.
Yeah, you can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And if you're on Twitch, The Outlaw Nation, all one word. And if you want to head on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, help us get over 20,000 subscribers there. Come be a part of all the stuff we're doing there as well. And the Geek Buddies, the Cinephiles, and the Top 10, all my podcasts that I do as well. I think that's everything. Gee.
Oh my God, that's too many podcasts.
What about John and Wendy?
The John and Wendy show on Fridays on Twitch.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. We can't forget that show.
That's
exactly.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. Love that show.
Thanks, John. And Wendy, another great show. We've only got a couple more left before the end of the year.
I know.
But let everyone know where they can check out your stuff.
Always a fun time here on Pop Council. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Wendy Lee Zany. You can find me on YouTube, the Movie Couple channel, where we talk about all the geeky stuff, all the movie stuff, all the weird food. That's one of the topics now on our shows. It's very random, like a full-on Thanksgiving dinner flavored jelly beans or candy corn. Like, yeah, I know Rocha's like, what? And I was like, no, like straight up turkey flavored and gravy.
Does that taste good?
I don't know. I didn't buy it.
Oh, okay.
We talked about it. I was like, I said, if I find it, I'll buy it. And never found it. I was like, maybe that's a good thing.
So probably a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. That's for me.
Awesome. And I'm Jami Philbrick. You can check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Philbrick, my name on Facebook. And you can check out my reviews now on moviephone.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week on the Pop Council.
Bye, everyone.